for being here to help keeping the citizens of Hampden County informed about the latest legal push by activists to undermine, in my opinion, the criminal justice system in a move that will ultimately harm the very people they say they want to help. On April 7th, the Supreme Judicial Court issued a ruling agreeing to consider a limited release of some individuals from custody. Last week, the Committee for Public Counsel in the Massachusetts Association of the Criminal Defense Lawyers filed a motion asking the courts to expand that ruling. Now, it needs to be noted that here in Hampden County, I speak for myself and the DA will speak in a moment, that we are actually getting along very well with our CPCS and our Massachusetts Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. We're working collectively and collaboratively on these individual cases. But in Boston, in the eastern part of the state, they're pushing political agendas, and it needs to be reported out to the people. Additionally, Prison Legal Services is suing the state, aiming to have Section 35, involuntary commitment, substance abuse disorder clients removed from the treatment in correctional settings like we do here. Right now, we presently have 40 people receiving treatment for civil commitments. All of this is happening when we have zero, let me stress that again, zero cases of COVID-19 among the people in our care and custody, including inmates, Section 35 clients. We have zero cases. Myself and the district attorney stood here around 3 weeks ago and warned why we thought it would be a bad idea to have a bunch of court-ordered releases strictly because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we stand before you here again today to sadly relay that some of the things we warned everyone of are coming to pass. The total number of men and women in our custody as of Wednesday was 884. Just yesterday, 884. On April 7th, the day of the SJC ruling, it was 1,012. That's a lot of releases back to our community. Some of the people released by the courts have reoffended and been rearrested, leaving more victims in the community. One of them is a man who, when released, was arrested by the West Springfield Police Department around 11 p.m. on April 11th after allegedly breaking into a home that was occupied by a family with children. He made his way into the home and up the stairs before he was confronted by the parents, and running out the front door, prompting a massive police response, complete with a state police canine unit. Worse than this, he was arrested a day earlier, one day earlier, for doing the exact same thing at the exact same house. A judge released him on April 10th, and a day later, he did the same exact thing, victimizing the same exact family. And this wasn't the first offense. A Board of Probation check of his criminal history revealed more than 140 items of offenses. Others have suffered overdoses with limited access to addiction support services and medication-assisted treatment. Hampshire County Sheriff Patrick Cahalane was in the news this week discussing how he had heard, but we have not only heard, but we have verified that at least 2 inmates released in the past 2 weeks died from an overdose because they did not have proper discharge planning. We talked to the local police, and they are hearing the same stories on the street. People who end up with us because of this battle with addiction, either as an inmate or as a Section 35 client, need an extra layer of help upon release. The integral struggles to use based on an addiction is very real, and it is often deadly if they're not properly sent to the community with support services. When medication-assisted treatment patients are released without adequate and proper notice to us, they do not have a client to go to because this has not been set up because we weren't expecting them to go home. So when they're here receiving treatment, and all of a sudden we get the call to release them, there's no aftercare planning, there's no release planning, there's no discharge planning. So they're going to the community, walking out the front door, and we're crossing our fingers hoping that they're successful. When they are released, they are calling us back in panic. to get them an appointment at a clinic, which is increasingly tough because so many facilities are operating with short staffs due to the pandemic. In order to do our jobs for our clients or ex-offenders, we need to identify a clinic they can go to and make sure it all has all the required paperwork for the individual to become a patient. Jeopardizing that soft handoff to the community creates a great deal of issues and stresses for the person, even under the best case scenario. They definitely are not getting their medicine at the same time they did the day before, which can easily lead to withdrawals, which can lead to some of these offenders or clients going back down the path of using illegal substances because they have no other way to fill the urge. And if they use the same dose of heroin they used before they came in, the unfortunate reality is there's a high potential for an overdose, and I always call them a senseless death. Other issues we're seeing are directly relating to people being released are simply not having anywhere to go. Typically, when we release individuals in our care, it is done with a thorough discharge plan that dramatically increases their chance for success and long-term recovery. But how successful can somebody truly be if they have nowhere to sleep? We've had people beg, these are true stories now, beg judges to hold them on bail after being released so they could help them find a place to stay. We have staff giving people sleeping bags and coordinating for them a place to stay in a homeless shelter. We have also had women released from our Women's Regional Correctional Center with nowhere to go, so they return to live with an abusive partner. So what we're asking from the activists, quite frankly, is to back off. Enough's enough. We are taking exceptional efforts to prevent COVID-19 outbreak from penetrating these facility walls. For those of us that work directly in the core of this dangerous and very contagious virus, do me a favor. Let me do what I was elected to do. And that's to call upon my 28 years of correctional experience to safely and appropriately manage my department's facilities to ensure the health and safety of the staff, the people in our care, and the general public is met. It is time for these groups to stop using the men and women in our care as a political prop. And if they truly are sincere in their stated mission, be an actual partner to help us help them. To the judges, we completely understand and respect the difficult position you are in. Your decisions can literally mean life and death. We are just asking for your understanding that we are doing everything we can to preserve life. And we can only do that relative to releases if we have adequate time to help someone prepare to go home. We ask that you look at the entire picture of a person, including their criminal history, when considering if it's more important that the person be free during COVID-19 or if the community is safer with them staying here in our custody. Just yesterday, 32-year-old male was released at 6:30 at night from here on an ROR. He was released from the court. Within 5 minutes of him walking out the front door, there was a call back to the facility. We made a mistake. That person should be here. They got a bad criminal history. That person was rearrested by the Massachusetts State Police at about 1:30 this morning because he was driving drunk, flipped his car, and he was brought to the Bay State Hospital. If this individual hurt an innocent person, this is why we're here today to relay to you. Trust your DA's office. Trust your sheriff's office. We have your best interest, your safety, and the safety of our community at the forefront of our mind. I have said my piece. I will now turn things over to District Attorney Anthony Gulluni, who has his own thoughts and concerns on this issue.
Good morning. I want to thank everybody for being here. I first want to wish you and your families continued health. I hope everybody is well. I want to also thank Sheriff Cocchi for hosting this on this very important subject today, and furthermore thank him and his staff for their expertise and their skill in protecting the people in their care and custody. I wish to underline something for the public, that there are 0 cases of COVID-19 among the population here in the Hampden Sheriff's Department. I think that's incredibly remarkable, and I think it speaks to the skill and dedication of Sheriff Cocchi and his staff and what they have been able to implement here to protect the folks under their care and custody. And I think they take those two words very seriously when it comes to the people under their watch. The care and custody of the people that they have here are important things for them. I want to begin also by echoing something that Sheriff Cocchi said, that my responsibilities as district attorney, the reasons for which I was elected, were to basically keep people safe here in Hampden County. And that informs everything that I do, and certainly in these incredible circumstances, it's at the forefront of my mind. And if we go back about 3 weeks when we were all in this very same spot, when the SJC was making its decision, prior to making its decision, we argued to you that individual, thoughtful decisions needed to be made about defendants before the court. And the SJC agreed with us. That's been reported to the public, and we're very happy about that. That individual, thoughtful decisions must be made about who is released under these circumstances, considering the conditions in our jail and prison facilities across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which here in Hampden County are exemplary. Furthermore, the court told us to continue to do what we're doing. The SJC said, go before a trial court judge and make an individual decision, and contemplate and consider public safety, the rights of victims. That was very clear in the Supreme Judicial Court's decision. And it's what we argued. The sheriffs argued, some of the district attorneys argued, and other parties who were respondents in the case. But now we find ourselves, as the sheriff mentioned, with another bite at the apple. The same petitioners have filed a motion for reconsideration, asking the court to entertain their arguments again and change the court's decision potentially. We here, again, stand here today to say we are putting public safety and the health and wellness of inmates across the Commonwealth at the forefront. We need to consider public safety and what's right for individuals outside of the 4 walls of institutions and inside. So we argue again, and we will argue before the SJC to the extent that we have to, that public safety, victims' rights, and the wellness of inmates needs to be considered. In terms of what's happened in the last few weeks, or last couple weeks since the SJC's decision, there's been about 140 individuals released through the court system. About 20 to 25% of those individuals have been released by agreement. What I told the public throughout this discussion was we are going to make thoughtful decisions as prosecutors for those who have issues, health issues, and who do not pose a risk to public safety, that we would agree to release those individuals to avoid any potential issues with COVID-19. So we've released about 22%, to be particular, of individuals who have come forward and asked to be released. We've agreed, again, to about a fifth or about a quarter. But furthermore, 100 or so more have gone before the court. We've disagreed on a great number of those. But despite our opposition to those motions, courts have released about 50% of individuals, where we have argued that public safety needs to be the priority here, that this individual poses specific risks, that this person has a terrible record, this person has victimized someone. And there are horror stories that the sheriff has mentioned, and we want to avoid those things going forward. But fundamentally, I want to reassure the public that the sheriff and I, the police departments across this county, the Massachusetts State Police, are all working to maintain public safety in these incredible times. I'm very proud of the work that my office has done. Assistant district attorneys and staff in my office have stepped up, have worked hard, have worked remotely, have continued to handle the emergency matters in this county to make sure that people are safe. And the partnership that I have with Sheriff Cocchi and all of law enforcement, I think, is really serving the public well, and I'm very proud of that. So thank you for being here, and I believe the sheriff and I would be happy to take any questions.
What are you doing to prevent COVID-19 cases in the jail?
To prevent COVID-19 cases, we've implemented a staff screening area. And every staff person comes through is met by a medical professional. They're asked a series of questions. Their temperature is taken. And as of right now today, we have 25 people that are just on precautionary measures. We've had a total of 11 staff test positive for COVID-19. This has all been over the past probably 2 to 3 weeks. See, the key was, as you're all wearing, is masks. I implemented an order many weeks ago that every offender and every staff member would wear a mask when they came to work. So the people that did have a contact issue with a COVID-19 person in the community that either contracted it and came in had a mask on. So we've stopped the spread. It's very important to understand that the medical professionals who are really driving this, so as the DA said, his staff and his assistant district attorneys are doing such a tremendous job on the justice side that our medical personnel has stepped up and they've protected this place better than ever could have been thought or expected. And we plan on continuing to use the social distancing. We're doing that with the offenders as well. They feed at different times. They sleep head to toe. We can exercise the 6-foot distance in our facility because we are a facility that is fairly large, and we can spread our population around. So we've been very successful that way. Now again, if you think my head's buried in the sand to think we can finish this without potentially a positive case, it's not. I don't think it's a matter of if, I do think it's a matter of when, because remember, we're continuously taking people in from the community. Regional lockups, as you saw Springfield just leave, they're dropping somebody off from the community. But there's a process in place for every new person that comes to our facility. They are medically quarantined for a period of time, and then they go to another separated living unit where they continue to do their programming for a period of time before they ever reach general population. Look, I've been at this for 28 years. This is not the first epidemic that has come through the sheriff's office. We deal with it quite frequently. When you look at H1N1, MRSA, Ebola, we talk about Hep C. Now we're talking about the COVID-19. This is nothing new to us, but this is dangerous. So our precautionary measures are very important in how we continue to protect the men and women in our custody, protect and support our staff, so when they're leaving, they're decontaminating before they go home to their families. That's very important. I do want to make a comment and thank the district attorney. Not only is he our district attorney that we're very proud of, he's the president of the Massachusetts District Attorneys Association. And he's done a tremendous job leading this Commonwealth. And he's got some great colleagues around the state that are doing the right thing. Your colleague in Essex County's got his hands full with some serious cases. An example of a man who will be released because of the COVID-19, who shot at police, shot and wounded a correctional officer, was doing time, and they're going to open up the front door when he's COVID-19 cleared to go out. Well, we're hoping that that stops. Those are the cases that need to stop. Any other questions? Can you repeat that?
Now, if someone is a repeating offender, will their sentence be served in conjunction with the sentence that was committed, or will that be not looked at?
It depends on the circumstances. So if someone is out on release and commits another offense, if that person is sentenced on each of those offenses, there's a state statute that says those two sentences shall run consecutive or one after the other. But a person could not be convicted on one and convicted on the other. It's really circumstances dependent. Obviously, pretrial is not a tabulated sentence. So if someone has two separate sets of offenses, it's going to depend on how they're adjudicated once they go into court.
Have any sex offenders been released or will be released, and if so, are those victims going to be notified?
Certainly, my victim witness advocate staff is working very hard to continue the contact with victims and their families. I'm not specifically aware of a sex-based offender being released. The sheriff says no from his standpoint as well. Sex offenses are in the excluded categories as determined by the SJC, so they don't have that presumption of a release. pursuant to the decision. And again, I don't believe that any particular person with those kinds of offenses has been released at this point.
And I have one last question for either of you. Someone who is not a legal resident of the United States, I don't know if that's the case here, but if they're eligible to be released, will they be released here or will they be released in another state?
Sure. So presently, we do not have any ICE detainees here. We do have individuals that are doing a sentence here that may have a detainer placed on them, but pursuant to the SJC, we do not continue to hold them over. We do call an ICE agent. If they come and respond, they can put that person in custody outside in the public lobby. I will tell you, I have a brother sheriff that has many ICE detainees. He has probably released 40 of them. To your prior question about sex offenses, when you're an ICE detainee, you've already served your time on your crime. Then you're being held for deportation or to be seen in front of a judge to decide whether you will be deported or allowed to stay. Some of the charges of those men and women that are being released that are on ICE detainers are very, very serious. But again, they're not being released from a sentence. They're being released from being held. Again, thank you very much for coming. Really